41-24, Alabama, Georgia. A lot of punches thrown early. And then the second half, just all Alabama, a 21-0 second half shutout by the Crimson Tide. A lot of drama in that first half. The first half took a lot more time than the rest of the game did. Where do you want to start with this one? Because I think that there's some granular stuff that's really interesting. I think there's some big picture stuff that probably, I feel like my opinions didn't really change about either one of these teams, but the matchup itself, I'll say this. I'll say it delivered. We hyped it up all week. I felt entertained by what we saw out of these two still national championship contenders.
Yeah, I mean, this is the game. In a weird way, the game went a lot like what we expected it to, and we talked about on the podcast last week, and we talked about when we made it a lock infinity taking Alabama. It was just the overwhelming feeling that I think all four of us had was that over 60 minutes, I just don't see how Georgia can hang with Alabama with Stetson Bennett at quarterback. And that's exactly how it played out. They were able to hang around for the half. Hell, they had the lead at halftime, which Georgia seems to be great at doing against Alabama. And Bennett, while he wasn't playing well, Mac Jones really wasn't playing all that well either in the first half. And Bennett was making enough throws to keep Georgia in the game and to get them to lead. But then in the second half, the talent disparity between Mac Jones and Stetson Bennett became more and more apparent. Bennett turned the ball over a lot, was missing more throws than before. And I mean, he finished the night 18 of 40, 269, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Compare that to Mac Jones, who up against what's probably might be at worst the number 2 defense in the country, depending on how you feel about Clemson. It's one of the 2 best defenses in the country. And Mac Jones threw for 417 with 4 touchdowns and an interception against it. So if you're still not sure if Mac Jones is good, I think tonight probably had to seal that deal for you.
Feels like to me, in like the presidential debates, the primary debates, when there's like 13 candidates on the stage, right? And the early debates, you may have one of the candidates start out on the outside, the outer edges, and then each debate, they kind of get a little bit further inside. And then by the end of it, they're in the front podium. Feels a little bit of like what Mac Jones is doing right now. Like every week, we're just sort of reluctantly kind of move. Oh, he's still here. Okay, we'll move him on his side. Okay, he's still the guy's damn near perfect, and it's a credit to him. It's a credit to his receivers. He is. I mean, shout out to Roger Sherman
again. I mean, listen, he's my boy.
Getting a lot of love on the cover 3 the last couple of weeks.
I love Roger, man. That's my guy. I'm not ashamed to do it. What was the gem this week?
He just posted up Mac Jones's stats. This is a pretty simple one. You didn't have to work too hard for this one. He's posted Mac Jones's stats as compared to Tua, Jalen. Maybe he's right. Maybe I'm not even finding it now. So maybe it was somebody else. But Mac Jones's stats are like pretty clearly the best stats an Alabama quarterback has had in the last 5 years over the first 4 games. And he's doing it really just by he's not being spectacular. He's just being very efficient, accurate, making the right decisions. But, and all that said, and I believe all that, and I think Mac Jones has been a revelation. And, I was the guy that was sitting here saying, the Georgia game, yeah, the Georgia game is going to be the sort of the moment where we find out if Mac Jones can be the guy for the rest of the year, or if Bryce Young has to take over. Well, Mac Jones is going to be the guy the rest of the year. But and I thought like you said, Tom, the quarterback differential there was critical, and it was kind of the difference. And the fact that Stetson Bennett really couldn't stretch the field with his arms, make those big throws, hit home runs. That was the difference. But I think the reason that Mac Jones can do that in part is because of those wide receivers. And to me, that was where I saw the difference in the game. My eye was drawn more towards the difference at the receiver position than the difference at the quarterback position or anywhere else. And it wasn't that Georgia is deficient at wide receiver. It's just that Alabama's got some damn killers out there. Like those dudes are assassins. And I think this game is moving in a direction and has arrived. Not moving, it's just arrived in a spot where that is really important. You know, best team in the country last year. What'd they have? They had the best receiver in the damn country. You know, like you want to figure out why Alabama, like you want to talk yourself into Alabama being Clemson? Well, Clemson doesn't have those two guys. Yeah, like no one has those two guys on one team, and so that was my thing tonight. Is just watching those two guys, Waddle and Smith, operate was just totally eye-opening and just incredible.
Yeah, I've been kind of posing the theory the last couple of years where it's like the Heisman is without a doubt now a quarterback award. It's almost impossible for a non-QB to win it. But I do think that considering the award is throughout its history, it was a running back award and then it became the QB award. And it's never really been for wide receivers. I do think we're at an age now where a wide receiver will win a Heisman before the next running back does. And I do think it's because of guys like this. And we had the text thread about it during the game. Barton, you're a huge DeVonta Smith fan. I like Jalen Waddle. And my thing with Alabama is every year, it's not just that they're really talented or super fast. Like Jalen Waddle got behind a guy, had a nice little push off and, 90-yard touchdown in the blink of an eye that completely, changed the game. DeVonta made that amazing catch at the back of the end zone on a perfect throw from Mac Jones with perfect coverage on him. And he reached up, high pointed it, got his foot down. And these are all spectacular things. Like you see that, but it's the little things that they do that really stand out. And it's been consistent with Alabama through the years, going all the way back to Julio Jones. It's not just that they have talented guys. They have like perfect route runners consistently. Went from Julio, who ran great routes, to Amari Cooper, who ran great routes, to Calvin Ridley, who ran great routes, to Judy, and now to Smith. And Waddle, I think, is a little more raw with some of his routes. I think he's great on the slant and obviously the go. He's already got that down no matter what. But like you were texting about it and tweeting about it too, Smith is just a master technician with his routes. There's his speed, his balance, the way he runs it, and his timing are just phenomenal.
So like 11 catches, 167 yards, and 2 touchdowns against the best defense in the country. Like that is big game stuff, right? Like that's like, okay, you know what? Like we need for me to step up and be a superstar. I'm a senior on this team and I'm going to win against Stokes. I'm going to win against Tyson Campbell. I'm going to win against other players that are also going to be in the NFL in this secondary. And DeVonta Smith just went out and got it, man. That's crazy stat line. 11 catches, 167 yards, 2 touchdowns. Stupid.
And those were contested catches. Those were that's what's. I mean, like it wasn't as if Georgia's defense wasn't awesome, and it wasn't as if he was just ripping those guys up. It was just when you're that good, and the margin is so slim and thin, the better player just is making those plays, and he was the best player on the field. Just go back to the 4th and 21 or whatever, or the 2nd and 21, whatever the play was where he caught the pass from Tua to score the touchdown. Because everybody sees that play from
I believe it's 3rd and 26.
3rd and 26. All right. So everyone's seeing that play. Like watch DeVonta Smith at the beginning of that. If you can find the angle where it shows his release and the way and how effortlessly and fluid like he is in stacking that corner. He's a freak, man. He is an absolute freak show.
13 targets for those 11 catches for 167 yards.
It's a pretty good conversion rate.
And Jermaine Burton provided Georgia with sort of their athletic boost that it needed, and he flashed as a true freshman, and he had a good game. But there were some plays that Jermaine Burton couldn't make that DeVonta Smith makes. Mm-hmm. And maybe Jermaine Burton will make those. But I'm telling you, like, it's weird to say it because we're so programmed to be like, oh, the game was won in the trenches. And, look defensive line. And the game is won at the receiver position tonight. That's what I thought anyways.
Yeah, and speaking of receivers, like you mentioned Burton, who I think is somebody over like the last couple of weeks is really showing that I feel like as this offense improves and moves forward, he's probably going to be that guy for the Georgia offense. But like George Pickens tonight was another kind of disappointing performance. And this is a guy that came in with so much, he was a highly rated recruit. There's a lot of hype around him, a lot of promise with him. And this was just another night where I felt like he had a chance to, really kind of assert himself. And he just came up short. Now, it's not all on him because there were times where he was open and quite frankly, Stetson Bennett missed him. It's just, it's getting to the point with Pickens that I feel like it's got to, show up at some point. I don't know. It feels like it's missing still.
I agree. I wonder if you could put some of that on Pat Surtain Jr., who I don't know. I think was on him most of the night. But it's because for all the big plays that took place, I didn't see a whole lot of those taking place on Pat Surtain's watch.
No, it was James Cook. I mean, it was like when Georgia was successful offensively, it was throwing to tight ends and running backs. Mm-hmm. It wasn't, getting those outside receivers. And that's because Alabama's good at corner. I mean, it was playing out pretty close to the way that we had broken it down in some of our previews, where the weaknesses were going to be, those outside linebacker positions. The weaknesses were going to be maybe at the safety position. And those were places that Georgia hit. I mean, I like, again, I'm coming out of a game that Georgia lost 41-24, where it felt like Georgia could not defend the wide receiver position. I still think Georgia's really good. Yeah. I thought they came in with a really, really good game plan, and I'm coming out of it like even more firmly believing that, to look at the AP poll, for example, like 1, 2, and 3, and then line. And then I think that you go for a little bit of a drop off from there. Georgia may lose again. It's college football. We've seen some wild stuff, but like, man, that is still a very, very solid team. I just thought that at a crucial point in that game, coming out of halftime, Bama just was able to separate itself. But I don't knock Georgia in my own mental power rankings from the way they played in this game.
Yeah, they can still be Bama.
Yeah,
they could.
Yeah,
and that's what I was gonna say. I feel like maybe a lot of people won't want to hear this, but we could see this game 2 more times still this season, because there's still a very good chance that they're going to meet in the SEC title game, and there's still a chance that they could meet again in the playoff afterward.
If Georgia wins in Atlanta, then they both make. I'll say that now.
Definitely,
if they meet in the SEC championship game and Georgia wins, both teams are in.
Yeah,
without question.
If they both have 3 losses by then,
right. That assumes that they get there fairly unscathed. But yeah, like I think if they get there the way in the kind of shape we think they're going to get there, then yeah, I think that the Georgia win would mean both get in.
So it was funny because I guess some of it was just the way the game played out, especially with Alabama really taking control in the third quarter, but Najee Harris had 152 yards, and it felt quiet.
Yeah. Well, he did it on 31 carries. That's the thing. It wasn't like he had like a huge night with a bunch of huge plays. That was very much.
The long was 17. His longest run wasn't even like an explosive. It was 152 workman-like yards against the best rushing defense in the country.
Yeah, exactly. It was just kind of like he was getting thrown into the wall over and over again because, they needed him to do it. So he just played his role, and he did a pretty good job considering the amount of carries he had and the fact that just no explosive plays. But yeah, he was the yeoman tonight. He was the guy doing the work and letting everybody else shine.
And then the other thing that stood out, it sort of took me back to, like, Barton, when you checked me on Clemson last week, I loved it. Like it rung with me like the rest of the week. I came in with a list of complaints, and you were like, and that was after a 42-17 win. I'm coming into this, I'm like, man, Mac Jones looked a little rattled. He looked a little out of place. He really looked like, he was off his game. And then you just sit down at the end of it and you're like, he only had 8 incompletions and he had 417 passing yards with 4 touchdowns. Stupid. Like that is a high standard that we are using for these teams. And even with all the complaints, I think when you take a step back, you realize that, especially against a team like that, just phenomenal performance.
Yeah, to be fair, in the first half, he was kind of shaky. He was 15-23, had 2 touchdowns, had the interception. It was in the second half where he really settled in. He was 9-10 for 193 yards with the 2 touchdowns.
He looked a little shaky there.
He had that one incompletion after halftime, which you got to be better, Mac. Come on, get your head in the game.
So, well, Tom sent out the bat signal on Twitter for JT Daniels.
Yes.
Oh yeah, we can't move on before we addressing that.
It's a little weird, and I mean, obviously he's just not physically ready, obviously, because he would. There's no way he is not playing in a game like that over Stetson Bennett, and that's why, like, when Stetson Bennett was throwing those interceptions, Kirby Smart was all like positive Polly.
Oh,
like he's
patting him on the butt.
Yeah, a lot of butt taps.
Stet, you got this. Come on, Stet, get back on out there.
Like, that tells me that it wasn't just like he needed him for the night. It tells me that there's going to be a few more weeks of this Stetson Bennett stuff, and not that Stetson Bennett can win most of it. Stetson Bennett's not bad, but it's going to be a couple more weeks of this, because if not, I feel like you would have gotten a little more of the ass chewing Kirby Smart instead of the ass patting Kirby Smart. And I think JT Daniels must be still a few more weeks away. There's no other explanation.
All right, well, let's make a prediction here, because Georgia's got a bye next week, and then they come back on Halloween against Kentucky on the road, and then the week after that, first Saturday in November, it's the cocktail party. Is JT Daniels the starting quarterback against Florida?
I'll just randomly guess that I'll say yes. I don't know. I'll say yes. I mean, I'm just guessing on this, like, phantom injury.
Yeah.
And health situation, but I don't know. Feels like that might be enough time. Surely.
Yeah, I'm voting yes.
Not should. You're guessing will.
Yeah. I'm guessing we see JT Daniels and Kyle Trask going at each other in Jacksonville.
So I'll vote yes. But I think that Stetson Bennett can beat Florida. Of course, the wrinkle here being that Florida's defense is Florida's defense.
Yes.
Right. It's just a game of pretty big magnitude, and you're going to you basically just need to warm up JT Daniels. And okay, so I'll throw this in for Stetson Bennett. Is there something to be said for the fact that in the framework of this offense, as it's been running so far, that Stetson Bennett, he's not a dual threat, but he's like a 1.5 threat? You know, like they do use him. He at least takes off. He gets some first downs on the ground. He will take off and run a little bit.
He scares me out of the pocket, though.
Like, well, if he throws, for sure.
Yeah, like, he made one great throw rolling to his right, but most of his throws, I feel like when he's on the run, have a lot of a hope and prayer to him that I just don't think Georgia really wants to see.
So, Chip, your question is there something to be said for the fact that he can just sort of like move a little bit on the outside?
Yeah, as opposed to like still recovering. Like, if you're not medically cleared until recently.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, like
JT Daniels, if he's as opposed to a potentially very stationary JT Daniels. Is that what you're getting at? Yeah, I got you.
The idea that you are giving up some downfield passing ability to JT Daniels for the ability to extend the play a little bit, or at least scoot for a first down on 3rd and 5.
Well, I also think there's probably the idea that just JT Daniels is coming off a serious injury. I'm sure he isn't anxious to get on the field before he's ready. And I'm sure Georgia is probably thinking about this from let's take care of our quarterback of the next year or two, instead of just getting him out there and getting him re-injured again.
I think he starts for Kentucky.
But I think Stetson Bennett, to your point, I think Stetson Bennett's just sort of, he's like out there just kind of a survivor, just scrapping and clawing for everything he gets.
And listen,
for a little bit, he'll throw a little out route, but
Kentucky's a little tough, man. Kentucky will get after the quarterback. Like, that's a tough spot to be able to send. You're going to send JT Daniels out there at Kroger Field asking for a buy one, get one win. Are you kidding me?
It's a bye week. It's a bye week.
I know.